In the quiet English village of Narborough, life was predictable, comfortable. It was the kind of place where kids played in the streets until dusk, and everyone knew their neighbors. But on the night of November 21st, 1983, that peace was shattered for good. 15-year-old Linda Mann was taking a familiar shortcut home, a path locals called the Black Pad. She'd walked it 100 times, but on this night, she never made it home. The next morning, the search ended in the most horrific way you can imagine. Linda had been brutally attacked and murdered. Her body left just minutes from the safety of her front door. The community was paralyzed with shock. A killer was hiding among them, and the police had no witnesses, no suspects, and frankly, no idea where to even begin. For nearly 3 years, the trail went cold. The people of Leicestershire lived with a quiet dread, a shadow that hung over their otherwise peaceful lives. The police investigation hit one dead end after another. Then, in late July of 1986, the nightmare started all over again. In the nearby village of Enderby, another 15-year-old girl, Dawn Ashworth, vanished on her way home. The circumstances were chillingly similar to Linda Mann's case. When Dawn's body was found 2 days later, the terrible truth was undeniable. The way she had been killed was identical to the first murder. Panic ripped through the county. This wasn't a random act of violence. It was clearly the work of a serial killer. The pressure on the Leicestershire Constabulary was immense. They had to find this monster before he struck again. The two murders shared the same gruesome signature, and investigators were sure a single man was responsible. Their manhunt kicked into high gear, but the killer seemed to be a ghost, leaving nothing behind but terror and grief. Desperate for a lead, the investigation soon zeroed in on a local 17-year-old kitchen porter named Richard Buckland. Buckland had learning difficulties and, this is the crucial part, seemed to know details about Dawn Ashworth's death that hadn't been released to the public. Under intense police questioning, the teenager confessed to Dawn's murder. But his story kept changing. He'd confess, then take it back. And while he admitted to the second murder, he was adamant that he had nothing to do with killing Linda Mann. This was a problem for the police, who were convinced both crimes were linked. Despite the shaky confession and his denial of the first murder, they charged him. To try and lock down their case, investigators turned to the forensic science of the time. Semen samples from both victims showed the killer had type A blood and a specific enzyme marker, PGM1+. This was a system used before DNA typing to help narrow down suspects. But when Richard Buckland was tested, his blood didn't have that same marker. Even with this conflicting evidence, the police pushed forward, convinced they had their man. All the while, the real killer was free, hiding in plain sight. Just 10 miles away from the investigation, at the University of Leicester, a geneticist named Alec Jeffreys was about to change the world. Back in 1984, while studying how genetic diseases are passed down in families, he had a eureka moment. He was looking at parts of our DNA called mini-satellites, short, repeating sequences that stutter over and over again. What Jeffreys discovered was that the pattern of these repetitions was unique to every single person. He developed an X-ray film and saw a series of fuzzy black lines, patterns that were as different from one person to the next as a fingerprint. He had stumbled upon a way to create a unique profile for every individual. He called it a DNA fingerprint. It looked like a supermarket barcode, and just like a barcode identifies a product, this pattern could definitively identify a person. At first, the technology was just used to settle immigration and paternity cases, proving family relationships with total certainty. But using it in a criminal case, that was still just a theory that was about to be put to the ultimate test. With their case against Richard Buckland falling apart, and all other leads exhausted, the Leicestershire police made a historic decision. They went to Alec Jeffreys and asked him to use his revolutionary, but still unproven, DNA fingerprinting technique. They wanted him to compare DNA from the crime scenes with the DNA in Richard Buckland's blood. The goal was simple: prove that Buckland had killed both girls. Jeffreys got to work. He analyzed the samples, and the results were stunning, just not in the way the police expected. First, the DNA from both crime scenes was a perfect match to each other. This confirmed the police theory that one man had committed both murders. But then, when Jeffreys compared the killer's DNA profile to Richard Buckland's, there was no match. Not even close. The science was absolute. Richard Buckland was innocent. In a historic moment, he became the first person in the world to be cleared of a crime thanks to DNA evidence. The police were right back where they started. They had freed an innocent man, but they were no closer to finding the real killer. The only thing they had was the killer's genetic barcode, a ghost in the machine. This led to a move that nobody had ever tried before. In early 1987, the police launched the world's first mass DNA screening. They asked every single man between 17 and 34 who lived or worked in the 3 villages at the heart of the investigation to voluntarily give a blood or saliva sample. It was a massive, unprecedented effort. Over several months, more than 5,000 men lined up to give their DNA, all hoping to help catch a killer and clear their own names. The police and Jeffreys' team worked tirelessly, analyzing thousands of samples and comparing each one to the killer's DNA profile. But as the months dragged on, a frustrating reality set in. No matches. Not a single one. How was that possible? Had the killer moved away? Was he not in the age range? The groundbreaking investigation seemed to be running out of steam, and there was talk of ending the expensive and time-consuming search. The DNA fingerprint, which had promised so much, had only proved who the killer wasn't, not who he was. The breakthrough, when it finally came, didn't come from a lab. It came from a random conversation in a local pub in the summer of 1987. A bakery worker was overheard telling his friends a strange story. He was bragging about helping out a co-worker, a man named Colin Pitchfork. Pitchfork had told him he was afraid to give a DNA sample because of a past conviction for indecent exposure, and had bullied his friend, Ian Kelly, into taking the test for him with a fake passport. A woman in the pub overheard this, and it just didn't sit right with her. She reported what she'd heard to the police. Suddenly, it all clicked into place. The reason the killer's DNA wasn't in the database was because he'd gotten someone else to take the test for him. On September 19, 1987, police arrested Colin Pitchfork, a 27-year-old married father of 2 who worked as a baker. They took a sample of his blood, and Alec Jeffreys ran the test. The result was definitive. The DNA barcode was a perfect match. Colin Pitchfork was the man who had terrorized Leicestershire for 4 long years. Faced with irrefutable genetic evidence, Colin Pitchfork confessed. He admitted to the brutal murders of both Linda Mann and Dawn Ashworth. He also confessed to a long and disturbing history of sexual offenses. In January 1988, he pleaded guilty and was sentenced to life in prison, with the judge recommending he serve a minimum of 30 years. The case was a landmark for justice on 2 fronts. It didn't just catch a brutal serial killer who might have otherwise gotten away with it. It also freed an innocent man who had been wrongly accused. It was the first time DNA profiling had ever been used to get a murder conviction, and its success sent shockwaves through the world of forensic science. The genetic fingerprint, pioneered by Alec Jeffreys, became one of the most powerful tools in law enforcement history. A tool that would go on to solve countless cold cases and bring justice to victims and their families all over the globe. Legacy of the Pitchfork case is immeasurable. It kicked off a new era of forensic science, making DNA evidence a cornerstone of criminal investigations worldwide. But the story of Colin Pitchfork himself isn't over. He was released on parole in September 2021, but was recalled to prison just 2 months later for breaching his license conditions after approaching a lone woman. Since then, he has faced multiple parole hearings, A decision to release him in June 2023 was blocked by the UK's Justice Secretary. As of late 2025, his case remains tangled in legal challenges, with hearings delayed by further allegations and judicial reviews, denying closure for the victims' families who have fought to keep him behind bars. Colin Pitchfork case is a powerful testament to the relentless pursuit of justice and the revolutionary power of science. It solved a horrifying mystery, freed an innocent person, and gave law enforcement a weapon against crime that once seemed like science fiction. The questions it raised about privacy and mass screening are still debated today, but its impact on bringing the truth to light is undeniable. If you found the story as incredible as we did, hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the cases where science and true crime intersect. Let us know in the comments what you think about this landmark case. Thanks for watching.